It is definitely a game for food critics to come in and to not be recognized. At least it used to be. It's not so much anymore with blogs and online content and all of that stuff, and with places like Yelp and City Search out there. Food critics are having a hard time, especially the anonymous ones, trying to combat the people who don't care about anonymity, who walk in and you hear stories about people threatening restaurant owners with writing bad Yelp reviews or things like that, or bloggers coming in and announcing themselves, pulling out cameras and notebooks and everything else. When you have so much of that out there, it's difficult to get the eyes of the readers, because they have so many other places to get this information, so many other places, and the anonymity doesn't hold as much cachet as it once did, when the newspapers and print journalism used to sort of rule the information flow in America. I mean, you're going to be able to call these people out almost immediately, especially if they're bloggers, or if they're Yelpers, or if they're people on City Search. I mean, these are people that you're going to get a very good idea, because they're either going to tell you, or they're going to be pulling their equipment out to take photographs and write notes or what have you. And honestly, right now, I would say that those are the people you're going to have to look out for more than, say, an anonymous food critic. Because at least an anonymous food critic is going to do their best to be fair. They're going out of their way to make sure they get a great idea of what that experience is. Somebody from Yelp or somebody from City Search is going to come in, or even a blogger is going to come in a lot of times, one night, have one dinner, go home and write up the experience. So that means if your front of house staff was off that night, or if there was an issue in the kitchen or anything, and that experience for that person on that night wasn't clicking, that's what the representation of your restaurant is going to be on the site. I mean, the nice thing about it is that at least for Yelp, those reviews are aggregated. So you can get sort of a weighted average of what people are saying about your place. But at the same time, you still have to be very on the ball, and that makes it very difficult for a restaurateur, I can imagine. I mean, it must be a hell of a lot of stress to know that there are people out there who it's their goal for their blog or for City Search or for Yelp or what have you to be sort of top of the heap, by being the first in, by having the strongest opinion or what have you. So it's sort of something that you definitely have to look out for. There are instances where that doesn't quite work. And does anybody know the restaurant Tanuki? Have you ever been to Tanuki? No? I would recommend, you've been there. I would recommend you definitely check this place out. And the chef there, her name is Janice Martin. She worked with Charlie Trotter. That's where one of the last places she worked was Charlie Trotter's in Chicago. She's definitely got a pedigree. She's definitely got chops. And she's making a Japanese-Korean fare in this sort of lowbrow izakaya in Northwest on 21st, I believe. And it's just a tiny hole-in-the-wall type of place. She's cooking on a two-burner hot plate and an electric griddle, and that's what she does her entire menu on. And her menu has about, 30 or more small plate options. And her goal is to challenge herself every night to the point, if she can't think over the course of the night and she's just slammed, and she loves that. That's what she's absolutely looking for. But her restaurant has very specific rules. Your entire party has to be there before you sit down. There are no kids allowed at all at any time in the restaurant. If you're eating, you're also drinking. This is not a place for teetotalers. You won't be treated well if you are a teetotaler. You should be ordering a bottle of sake the second you sit down. There's always some sort of crazy Japanese porn or violent film on the television, and crazy Japanese punk rock blaring. It won't be turned down, no matter what you say. The television won't be turned off, no matter how you plead. And that's just the way it is. And she has a tendency to be very abrasive, but at the same time, if you sit down, if you order a bottle of sake, and you order omakase, you say, just have her throw $30 worth of food at me, you're going to have a great time, and you're going to be well loved in this place. The problem now, the story is with Yelp. A lot of people started coming in, and they started. They didn't want to play by the rules. They wanted the music turned down. They thought the atmosphere was terrible because it's a dive bar essentially. It's a dive bar with really great food. They thought the atmosphere was terrible. They complained about any number of things, and Janice really fought back in a major way, and she took the fight online. And what that did is, instead of her getting a terrible reputation as this horrible person, this horrible restaurant that you never want to go to, she created this sort of die-hard regular clientele. And this is a place that's been going for quite a while now. I mean, it was one of the first restaurants I reviewed when I started at the Mercury, and almost 3 years later, she's showing no signs of stopping, but because she has this crazy die-hard group of people who are on her side and who want to be dominated by her, in a culinary sense, essentially. But this is rare. This is not something I would suggest you actively go out and try to reproduce, because I think it's sort of a magic thing that happened around Tanuki that allowed the place to thrive, even though Yelpers and City Search and PortlandFood.org, people on the PortlandFood.org forums were just going crazy, about how terrible she was, and on and on. So that's sort of what the food writing environment looks like right now, at least from my side. I would say you need to be more worried about what's online than what's going on in print.
What are your recommendations for any restaurant for when a reviewer or blogger or a customer in general comes in to make sure that they're having the best experience as possible?
Sure. I would say that it starts before the person comes in. In this day and age, you have to have some sort of web presence, unless you're trying to cultivate some sort of very special, secret, exclusive kind of aura, which is, again, it's very difficult to try to hit that right. I would say it definitely starts by having some sort of web presence and having yourself out there in some way before the customer even walks through the door. I would suggest that if you have a web presence, that it needs to be updated constantly. It needs to be workable for people. People need to be able to find your address immediately. They need to be able to find your phone number immediately. They need to be able to link to your menu easily. If it's not updated, if it has some sort of complicated flash, thing that slows down their browser or stuff like that, it's going to be of no use. So the simpler your web page and the more informative it is right off the bat, the better it's going to be. And that will give a customer immediately an idea of what's going on. It'll have that ease that they're ready to go check it out, and they can see what they're going to get before they get there. When they walk in the door, it's important that they be attended to as soon as possible. I would also say, if you're even partially inclined to writing, I would say have a blog for sure, and talk about and write about your experiments, your experiences, what you're tasting, what you're eating. Always write about it constantly. From meals that you're making at home, to meals that you're making here, to meals that you're eating out, to thoughts about food or what have you, because the more you write about this and the more you think about this, the more people are going to be able to connect with what you're doing. And there's huge value in that, especially in this kind of media environment. There's huge value to somebody being able to track down what you've written about, what you've eaten, what you've tasted, what you've experimented with. So if you get a gig somewhere, or if you open up your own place, people can find that, and they can connect to what you're doing, and then be much more inclined to come in and check out what's going on. So blogs for chefs, I think, are huge. And if you're even slightly inclined to writing, again, please, like, get on Tumblr, get on, Blogger, whatever. Just start one up, start writing, start taking photographs, and make sure you stay on top of it too. I mean, it's a huge resource, absolutely. A lot of times before I wrote a review, if the chef had a blog, I would be reading it before I went in, just to understand what they're all about, just to get a bead on what's happening. And of course, the better the writing is, the more likely you'll get recognized for whatever it is, that you're doing. So for sure, please do that.